a disaster strikes, persons lose valued possessions and some their livelihood. Imagine a farmer toiling from dusk till dawn to reap a harvest, and in an instant, it's gone. The Office of Disaster Preparedness and Emergency Management, ODPEM, heard the cries of the men and women who work in the field and came up with a project that has increased their resilience. The name? The Building Disaster Resilient Rural Communities and Livelihood BDRRCL project. Many farmers and fisherfolk in communities across Jamaica lack the know-how to mitigate the impacts of climate change. Proof can be found in the statistics. When Hurricane Ivan struck in 2004, the agriculture sector sustained 8.5 billion Jamaican dollars in damage, representing 24% of the total cost of impact for the Category 3 hurricane that passed just south of the island. It was estimated that a total of 11,100 hectares of agricultural producing land were affected, and about 111,000 farmers and fisherfolk sustained damage and losses. However, since its inception in 2013, the BDRRCL project has helped to increase their level of preparedness.
The BDRRCL really is an extension of what we call our BDRC, Building Disaster Resilient Communities. For some time now, the ODPEM has embarked on a program to build the resilience of communities. Understandably, when there's a disaster, those most affected are at the community level. So we have been for the past little over 20 years been working on a disaster resilient program for communities. The communities are really important because if our communities are affected, it's going to affect what happens at the parish level as well, and therefore it is really critical that as an organization we seek to strengthen, we seek to build resilience of our communities, and invariably we would have had parishes that are better prepared for disasters.
The one-year project saw over 150 farmers and fisherfolk in the parishes of Manchester, St. Elizabeth and Westmoreland being taught basic disaster management techniques.
Now, these 5 communities over the years have been impacted by natural hazards, and it's as a result of that we felt it prudent to focus on them.
The training, which received financial support from the United States Agency for International Development, USAID, was implemented by the Washington-based Agricultural Cooperative Development International Volunteers in Overseas Cooperative Assistance, ACDI, VOCA.
With the funding that we've gotten from the USAID, ACDI, VOCA, we've been able to mobilize on-the-ground support from our various ministries, departments and agencies. Critical to this process is the Social Development Commission, the Jamaica Red Cross, and equally important, the local authorities.
It is so important for us to consider disaster and climate risks whenever we are doing community development work. So yes, we're focusing on the livelihoods, but more importantly, we want to ensure that as we protect our livelihoods, we are making sure that we are doing it in such a way that we can have a sustainable long-term investment. And so it is therefore a pleasure, and has been a pleasure for us to partner with ODPEM and the other persons that have been working with you in this community.
With the foundation laid, training the eager farmers and fisherfolk was made much simpler. The first step was to place them in groups, Community Disaster Risk Management Groups or CDRMGs.
The purpose of the CDRM group is to ensure that at the community level we have response capacity in place, because you realize that in any emergency situation it is usually the persons who are living there, they are the ones who are always first to respond. It takes a while for the fire department, it takes a while for the local authority or even at the national level for us to get there.
The hard-working group under the Basic Disaster Management Suite of training were exposed to key concepts that would make them disaster ready. They were made aware of the vulnerable areas in their community, taken through the process of preparing for, responding to, and recovering from the impact of hurricanes, taught how to safeguard their homes and other structures against the likely effects from major earthquakes, equipped with best practices that can be employed to reduce the impact of flooding of agricultural areas, shown how to prepare farmlands to counter landslides, and given information on climate change and its impact.
It has been a very good experience, one that has opened my mind to a number of areas that I have never explored before. It is one that has caused me to think twice about everyday things that individuals do that negatively impact the community, and also things that we as a community need to do in order to better fit ourselves for disaster.
We're more prepared in case there's a disaster. We know who to turn to, and we're prepared. We are trying to be a self-dependent community, and that's why we are doing these trainings.
It has done a lot, knowing that the community was educated about disasters and is now better prepared to deal with disasters and even put in mitigations for that we are able to manage these disasters when they strike.
I believe that all of us are ready and willing to respond to any situation that will ever occur in our community.
With all the information garnered, the groups were ready to create the change they needed in their communities. But then a core group within each batch was taken to another level in disaster preparedness. They were exposed to specialized training to boost the responder capabilities of each community. They were taught how to conduct post-impact damage assessment of buildings that may have been affected by a disaster, trained to handle the social and psychological issues that may be present in a shelter, given in-depth training in standard first aid with adult CPR, engaged in writing a community disaster risk management plan for their community, and the participants who showed high levels of competency were trained as trainers. But there's more.
The community members receive specialized training in areas such as initial damage assessment, shelter management, and emergency radio communication. Now, these areas are very important. Emergency radio telecommunications training will ensure that community members are able to communicate with us during an emergency situation, especially in instances when the cell phone service is down and the landline services are down. They receive training in IDA, which is also important because after an emergency situation, when the national responders are not able to go out and to see the level of damage that was done, these initial damage assessment persons will be able to give us an idea of what kind of damage was done so that we'll be able to assist them after an emergency as soon as possible.
Simulation exercises were done to see how advanced the participants were. The men and women treated each exercise like a real-life event.
One very important part of this project, which we are very happy about, was that the communities will benefit from micro-mitigation projects or livelihood projects. So far we have the community of Asia and Pisgah, which will be benefiting from apiculture. And we have the community of Pedro Plains, which the roof of their shelter, which is the Pedro Plains Primary School, the roof will be fixed. So it's very important that persons are able to benefit in a tangible way from projects such as these.
ODPEM held closing ceremonies in the various communities at the end of the project to congratulate the participants on their commitment to being proactive and to hand over well-needed disaster-related equipment.
I want to give ODPEM a big thanks in what they do.
They see us through with this program and we are grateful to them. Thank you very much, ODPEM.
Though the Building Disaster Resilient Rural Communities and Livelihood project is intended for the farming and the fishing community, schools, businesses and communities island-wide have also benefited from the various interventions.
The ODPEM has endorsed the view of ensuring that persons are prepared. So on an ongoing basis, we have a number of programs aimed at building this level of readiness. We talk about ensuring that your homes and your surroundings are ready for a disaster, and for persons to recognize that they have a responsibility. You may want to know where your shelters are. It's a good time for persons to always figure out where is my parish disaster coordinator as part of your readiness mechanism, knowing before, as there's an old adage, to be forearmed is to be forewarned. So we really want Jamaicans to arm themselves with the knowledge so that when there's a threat, they're better prepared.
For more information on the work of the Office of Disaster Preparedness and Emergency Management, visit their website, odpem.org.jm, or call them at 906-9674-5 or 754-9077. Disasters do happen. Be prepared.